Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Beggs, hopefully a future media specialist, and welcome to my capstone. Let's jump directly into the standards. So, standard number one, teaching for learning. A big feature of this standard is relationships. And in my opinion, the most important thing we as teachers can do in the modern educational setting is develop relationships, whether that's between us and other teachers or us and students, doesn't really matter. It is incredibly important. And the reason it's important, students can come from many different backgrounds, and we need to be supportive of these different backgrounds as well as know how to support them, which is just an important thing that we can learn through developing relationships. The way I showed this is through my collaborative lesson plan. I worked with Miss Phillips, our self contained EBD teacher, and because of the way my schedule works as a current teacher, I really had to rely on the relationships she had already built with the students to determine what would best interest them. So, the thing we ended up deciding to do was a reading unit over middle school worst years of my life, and I used a lot of uh, different tools like my comic strip ending to develop those 21st century skills. There's my example. Here's some of the students' work. As you can see, it's not necessarily the greatest, but it explains what they need to show and shows a understanding of the actual reading. This could only have been accomplished through Miss Phillips's relationships and knowing what the students needed to know and what they needed in order to succeed. And I had to also leave a lot of the student work to her, so a lot of this was more her led rather than me led, except for the actual reading and the introduction of the work. Moving on to Standard 2. Standard 2 uses the same basic evidence, which is the collaborative reading plan, because it is about literacy and reading itself. So, for my collaborative reading plan, my students that I'm working with are very low level readers, so I promoted reading through reading by actually reading to the students. Another way that I currently use this is through my own personal library, my classroom library, and my school collection that I've learned a lot more about through this class to help find books that are going to be interesting to students in order to help encourage them to read more. Another thing that I noticed while working in the library is that our nonfiction section, as you'll see when you listen to my interview, desperately needs to be weeded. No one is checking out the books from our nonfiction section currently outside of sports, animals, and I can't remember what the last one is, but sports and animals are the main two. And as you can see, once again, here's my evidence for this, that I am reading the book aloud to my students and then giving them work based on what we are currently reading. Moving on to standard number three. So, standard number three is information and knowledge. This one I didn't have a lot to say about, but I felt that it was really useful. I try my best to stay up to date on the most current trends in information delivery, and I'm regularly talking to other teachers about how they can do this and trying to disseminate the information that I learn. It's not normally as formal as my professional development plan that I mentioned here, where I actively brought in a bunch of different teachers from different areas of the school and developed something to try and help them bring all of their student work into one place where the students could easily keep up with it. The other evidence that I have for this is my PLN, where I'm actively seeking out things like Miss Media Pants or Miss Reader Pants, is what I mean, who have developed all of these tools and better research the stuff that I just haven't had time to do. On to standard four, which piggybacks off my evidence from standard three. So, standard number four is advocacy and leadership. So, leadership is something that I struggle with, but I was able to advocate a lot with my professional development plan. I tried to use my professional development plan to be as cross curricular as I could and actually bridge the gap between content and the elective classes. As you can see here, I'm working with Mr. Johnson, who is our band director. One of these up here is actually our art teacher. I forgot to turn on email address collection until our 5 people had submitted. But this has given me a chance to see that while this tool could be great for my ELA and math teachers and my other content classes, it might not necessarily work for my other areas that I really want to try and bring together. So this gives me a chance to advocate for tools that can benefit all teachers in the future when I'm hopefully in a media specialist position. And finally, we move on to standard number five. So, standard number five, this is where I really struggled. I'm not great at program management or administration. This is something that I need to work on. And this is an area where my grant proposal came in. What I noticed with this grant proposal is that I would have to develop a program with the ELA teachers and actually bring them in Right here, you can see I would have to bring them in before pre-planning and present all this information to them and get this buy-in and get them interested in this program, or my idea of trying to improve student literacy rates through graphic novels would have never taken off, and still might not, since I haven't officially submitted the grant and started all this yet. But even once I do that, I'm going to have to rely on this program that I'm developing with these ELA teachers to get the information into the hands of the students, as well as look at the evaluation and see how student literacy rates are improving as we move forward. With that said, that is my coverage of all 5 standards. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. Thank y'all. Thank you for listening.